Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It's your friend Dom C with Project Prospect, here with my esteemed co-host Tigo from Talking Jets with Tigo. We are the Draft Dodgers, here for another quick episode 5 of our podcast. Tigo, already there. How about it, huh?
Yeah, just a little over a month of doing this stuff.
Little over a month. Yeah, listen. Truth be told, full disclosure, fans and whoever's watching this, the 14 of you that are watching this or whatnot, I've been sick as a dog, man. So I postponed recording a couple episodes for a few days now as I kind of came back to life and came back to normal. So today I just wanted to get on here and get some content together so we can put it out on the channel. So instead of continuing with our positional breakdowns, which are a little bit more in depth and a little bit longer and take a little bit more editing, I figured let's be short and sweet. And it's the end of November, and the draft order has changed, so why not toss another mock in there? What do you think, Teagues?
I think it's a great idea. I think as the season is starting to wind down, you're starting to see that separation in the standings, right? Of here's the guys chasing one, here's the guys chasing a Super Bowl, and you start, that split is really, really happening right now. And so I think we're going to start seeing, maybe not on this channel, because I kind of want to, like I said, we want to talk positional breakdowns and all this stuff. But I think this is going to be mock draft season a lot starting to come up, and it's the perfect time because the top of the draft order is so volatile this year. It's awesome.
Yeah. And before we get into the mock and tell you a little bit of what today's mock's going to look like, shameless plug right here on the banner going across the bottom of the page. You'll see the YouTube channel at Project Prospect with Dom C. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, hit those, leave some comments, have some interaction, some discourse with me and Tigo. It helps us a lot. It helps the algorithm on YouTube a lot, and dang, we like it. This is the stuff we like to talk about. So
That it is.
mock draft number whatever it is for us. But today we're gonna play is a little bit different. We're gonna toss in some predetermined trades. We've already established one, so I will. Well, you know what? Why don't I go ahead and share my screen and bring up the board, and we can talk about the one that we've established already. There we go. And as you see here, folks, Tampa Bay is now all the way up at 2. Tigo will be I will be picking for the odd number teams. Tigo will be picking for the even number teams. But we talked about it just to change it up and say, hey, who else could be interested in possibly coming up for a quarterback? We know what we've talked about. The Bears are going to have interest. We know that, New England can. People are talking about the Giants. And who else do you think is really in the market for a quarterback, Tigo? Obviously, Tampa Bay, since you suggested them, and it kind of dawned on me like, you got a point.
There's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in a quarterback. It's just a matter of which teams can realistically justify spending some capital to go out and get it, right? Who's within striking distance to go out and get a quarterback. And so, I looked at Tampa Bay and going from, 7 to 2 made a lot more sense than the Raiders coming up from 11. They're going to be interested in a quarterback, in my opinion. Then you've got, the Falcons, the Vikings, the Lions might be interested in a quarterback. The Jared Goff era might be coming to a close soon. There's a lot of teams.
You think so? I don't know. But
he's on the last year of his deal. They don't have to keep him. I'm just saying, if you're the Lions and you can get within striking distance of a quarterback, I'm not saying they're trading up for one, but I'm just saying that wouldn't be surprising if, let's say, the run on quarterbacks that I expect to happen doesn't happen. And when sitting there right now, they're projected at 27.
They got Hendon Hooker, man. Go Vols.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker is not an NFL quarterback, but that's besides the point. It just, you get that's kind of the idea there. If you're within striking distance of going out and getting a quarterback, I think there's a lot of teams that are going to be legitimately interested in it. And so, like I said, I think the Raiders, watch out for the Raiders. The Green Bay Packers may be a sneaky one. If they, how are they feeling on Jordan Love? Who's sitting there at 13, which is where they're at right now? Did the third QB on their board happen to still be there? There's a lot of teams. Arizona still might be a sneaky team that like, oh, the value at 2 wasn't great for us, but like if we're at 17 and the guy that we had is QB3 with a top 5 grade is still there,
Yeah,
we'll see.
I mean that's a real crap shot, but I mean anything is possible. Anything.
The Broncos with Russell Wilson's contract, like again,
Russell's cooking, man. He's cooking.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, like money talks.
Maybe it was a Hackett thing. Just saying.
I don't think it was. I think that the Jets roster is one of the worst ever created right now on offense.
Anyhow, listen, that's for another conversation. That's for another channel.
That's for my channel.
We're here to talk draft. And why don't we get this thing going? What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. You got the first pick. What is the Chicago Bears doing?
So, listen, I'm going to stick with what I've been sticking with. Now, you can make an argument, a bunch of different ways, and they all make sense. But to me, and this is why I'm going to make this pick, all right, I still think he's definitely the best quarterback in this draft. And after watching Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears play on Monday, I really think that the end of the Matt Eberflus era is coming quicker than we suppose.
So soon.
So it just makes sense. I don't know if you can pass. Listen, I'm not ready to call him generational, but blue chip for sure. A guy like Caleb Williams, just all the arm talent in the world, can really improvise and extend plays. Smart, heady football player, a true winner. I know he's got the intangibles that you want in a quarterback, like it or not. I know some people have been off put by his attitude, but the guy's a winner. And to me, he's the best quarterback in this draft. And he is now a Chicago Bear. So I'm going to default to the new number 2 team, Tampa Bay.
And this is going to be another year where the best quarterback in the draft gets taken number 2 overall. The Texans got away with absolute highway robbery last year with getting C.J. Stroud at number 2 overall when he was clearly QB1. And I think we're seeing the same thing happen this year. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers come up within striking distance, trying to get their guy, and they get their guy in Drake May out of North Carolina. Look, I get all that stuff about Caleb Williams and the insane arm talent and all of that stuff, but I think Drake May is just a more polished prospect. I think that he can come in and operate an NFL offense. He's sneaky athletic. And while he doesn't have all the arm angle stuff and the crazy athleticism that Caleb Williams has, I don't think he needs to do all of that crazy stuff because I think he can actually operate an NFL offense. So I'm going to take Drake May here at number 2. He's QB1 on my board. If you guys are curious, you can go look at our quarterback rankings list that we did on a previous episode of the Draft Dodgers Props podcast. And so, again, back-to-back years where QB1 gets taken number 2 overall.
Yeah, listen, I still have Caleb number 1. I'll probably end up with Caleb number 1 on my list when it's all said and done. But I could see how people could have their preference in Drake May. I'm just not there. That's all. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I'm just not there. And that leaves the Patriots here at 3, who are probably really pissed off that somebody traded up to take the quarterback as God. Listen, as a New York Jets fan, I've sat through some awful quarterback play this year, but there is just not one bit of excitement on the field when Mac Daddy Jones is behind center for the New England Patriots.
Twice for Bailey Zappi.
No, but I'm not. This spot here, it's too rich for me for any of the other quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and take one of the 2 best players overall in this class, a position of need for the Patriots, and a position of someone that can just come in and dominate height, weight, speed, fluid, a fluid mover, a ridiculous route runner in Marvin Harrison Jr. Probably one of the 2 generational. I know that term is used way too much, but I'd say this class has 2 of them. I think that he's one of them, and probably Brock Bowers. And when I say generational, it's a guy that you're not going to see a talent like this for another 10 years or so. At 6'4", 200 and some odd pounds. Yeah, if you're going to nitpick at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game, I guess, he's not the biggest yards after catch player, but he doesn't need to be. He beats you on everything else. I mean, just silky smooth the way he runs, the way he moves, the way he goes up and gets the ball. Great hands, ridiculous catch radius. I mean, there's nothing really, really negative about his game at all. New England's going to be thrilled to have him. Now they just got to find somebody to throw him the ball.
And somebody to protect the quarterback. I could have swore you were going to go the other way. Very un-Bill Belichick, not addressing the trenches here. I will say this. As a Jets fan, I'm really sad that Marvin Harrison is New England, but as a football fan, seeing Sauce versus Marvin Harrison Jr. 2 times a year is going to be really, really must-watch TV because that's just going to be a great matchup. I have the Chicago Bears here at 4. And I think that they're a little bit upset that Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't on the board here because I think that they would have easily taken Marvin Harrison and they would have jumped to the moon and they would have been absolutely just ecstatic about that and partnering him with DJ Moore. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a consolation prize. I still think that they desperately need a wide receiver, and I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here. For the Chicago Bears. I have Malik Neighbors as a guy who can sneak into that top 5 based purely on like positional need. I love his route running ability, his yards after the catch ability, all of the things that he provides. I really feel like he's going to be a really good contrast to DJ Moore and what he's doing in Chicago because like I really like what they're doing there. And now they have a relatively decent offensive line, in my opinion, in Chicago. And now you've got the quarterback with the crazy arm talent and all of this stuff who might need some time to catch up to the NFL game. Well, how do you make his life easier? Give him 2 really, really good targets on the outsides in DJ Moore and Malik Neighbors, 2 really quick, shifty, speedy guys that are going to get open quickly and just attack downfield.
Yeah, and listen, I get the pick. I mean, me probably, if I'm the GM for Chicago here, I could get with the wide receiver. I get it. They have to replace Darnell Mooney. I'm assuming, he walks in free agency, and he's just a guy at this point. He hasn't been that great. So putting DJ Moore and Malik Neighbors on an offense led by Caleb Williams is a nice thing for sure. So I'm not opposed to it, but I wouldn't be too upset if they went offensive line there either. They take one of the tackles and they can bump Braxton Jones inside.
I think Jones has been having a really, really good year at left tackle. I think he's been playing relatively well there. And I think they just took Darnell Wright last year, right? With a top 10 pick. So when I look at it and I go, the real position that they need, and it's funny that PFF has it listed here, but it says the real position that they need is on the interior. And I just don't feel comfortable taking an interior offensive lineman at 4, whether it would have been one of the guys or whatever. And I think Jones is playing really well at left tackle, and I don't want to move right into right guard. I didn't want to do any of those things. So I saw it. You need to adjust the offensive side of the ball, and you need to score points better. So Malik Neighbors it is.
Yeah. Well, that leaves me on the board on the clock with Washington, and I think Washington can go a bunch of different ways, right? Washington traded both of their starting defensive ends, but they have some more capital, early picks in the second round where I think you'll be able to get an edge rusher there. I don't know if there's one I love this high. There's not that one dominant guy. Leatu Latu is probably right now, arguably my favorite edge in the class. And although he might be worthy of this pick, I think the medicals are going to really seriously come into play.
There's a couple of those guys this draft where it's like they're one of my favorite players, but can they pass a physical?
Yeah. So I'm going to just default, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Oli Fashanu.
Yeah.
Oli Fashanu, he slides in. He's your left tackle. Probably for the next 10 years. They need to build up and protect that poor soul of a quarterback who can sling it all over the place, Sam Howell, but is just getting bombarded left, right, and center. So yeah, and I think, listen, I don't know where I end up with Olu or Joe Alt or Talisi Fuaga or J.C. Latham. I don't know who the best tackle is going to be in this class when it's all said and done, but
I think you got it right.
I think that Olu, I think, just turned 21 years old, has the highest ceiling of them all. Probably already established as the best pass protector of all the tackles in this class, worthy of this pick. So Olu's going to stay on the East Coast and go to Washington. And you're up with the New York Football Giants.
The Giants are an interesting team for me because there is this conversation of Joe Alt is on the board, take Joe Alt, right? But when I was doing my evaluation of this draft class and going through the offensive tackles for our next positional breakdown, which is the offensive tackles, I was looking at it and I was like, man, this class is so incredibly deep at the offensive tackle position. And if you're going to be picking at the top of the order and you're going to have a top of the second round pick, do you maybe prioritize a different position here? Do you maybe prioritize a different area here? The two positions that this draft class has so much depth at and so much talent at is wide receiver and offensive lineman. So do you maybe address something that's not as high of an, because they need wide receivers, they need offensive linemen desperately. But do you go I think I'm going to be a little bit of I'm going to galaxy brain this. I think Bean, the GM over there in New York, is going to want to get guys that are going to impact the game here. And I know this is going to be a wild out of left field pick, but I think I'm going to take Jer'Jon Newton here to the New York Giants. They just traded Leonard Williams to the Seattle Seahawks. They have a need on the defensive line. They need to get some of that pass rush and all of that stuff so that Wink can continue to do his things, assuming he's still there, or if he's not, whatever defensive coordinator is going to be coming in to do that. And again, by taking Jer'Jon Newton, you're getting the best interior defensive lineman in a class that's not that great in the interior of the defensive line beyond Jer'Jon Newton. There's some guys, but I think he's the guy that's going to work. And then you can go and get a second-round offensive lineman who can still come in and probably beat out Neal for that right tackle job. You can come in and get a second-round wide receiver who's going to come in and probably beat out Jalen Hyatt for the wide receiver 1 spot. You can still do those things in rounds 2 and 3 and get really good guys at really good value.
That's the first time in all my goings-on in this draft class that I've seen Jer'Jon Newton match up with the Giants. Listen, he's a big boy. He can get at the pass rusher. I mean, him and Sexy Dexy next to each other in there, that's the scary proposition.
Don't know
if it's the way I would go, but I understand the logic behind it. Just probably a little too rich for my blood here. But
I have him as a top 10 pick, so.
Yeah, I digress. That was your pick, and he's a New York Giant. So I'm up with Arizona.
Yeah.
Man, Arizona can go a bunch of different ways here. Arizona can go a bunch of different ways. I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do with Arizona? I'm going to make a trade.
Oh, who's coming up?
I'm going to trade down again. I'm going to trade down with the Green Bay Packers. And let's see if I can make this work.
Just force the trade.
I'm going to trade a first, a second, and a third, let's say, for a first. And we're going to force a second next year. How's that? And we're going to force that through. So it's a 1 and 2 twos to come up 6 spots for number 7. And Green Bay is on the clock now. And Green Bay is ecstatic because they're going to get their left tackle of the future in one Joe Alt. Listen, David Bakhtiari has probably seen his last days for sure as a Packer, probably playing football, 4 knee surgeries in the past 3 years. He's working on no cartilage. Joe Alt, I think offers you. I mean, he's a Green Bay Packer through and through. He's built he's built like a Packer, sturdy. Is a really really strong, aggressive mover of people in the run game. Can play left or right, so you still have some flexibility if you want to move Zach Tom over to the left side and pop him in at the right side, or if you just want to, have Joe Alt from day one block on the blind side. I mean, that's not a bad way to go. But for me, they had to come out of this draft with with some more protection up front and probably another piece or two on the defense. And they had some extra capital. Thank you, New York Jets. So they're going to use some of that to go up and secure arguably one of the two best tackles, if not the best tackle, in the class. Again, maybe not the ceiling of Olu Fashanu, but definitely a much higher floor and a guy you can see playing, Pro Bowl level football for the next 10 to 12 years.
Yeah, it's a great pick for the Packers, and it's again a back-to-back drafts where a team comes up to try to get in front of the Jets to get an offensive tackle, where the Jets aren't all that interested in taking an offensive tackle. The way that I evaluate this team, I know that they need a left tackle or a right tackle right now, depending on what they're going to do with Elijah Vera Tucker, but that's not where I was going to go in the first round, and I think the Jets are more than happy to sit here at 8 and get the guy that they were probably eyeing anyway. And I'm going to take the wide receiver Rome Odunze out of Washington. I think you got to get more. Aaron Rodgers is going to be coming back. And I think that you have to turn around that wide receiver room top to bottom. The only guy in that room that's worth keeping on the team beyond this year is Garrett Wilson, and you got to start bringing in guys. And I think you can do that with a big 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver he just goes up and he goes and gets it. And he's been having an excellent year in Washington. Penix has a lot of credit to give to Rome for the year and the revival that he's having. And Rome is going to be one of the reasons that Penix is going to be talked about as possibly going in the first round. And I think that I think you get a really, really talented wide receiver to get Aaron Rodgers to be able to go catch balls from Aaron Rodgers in New York.
Yeah, listen, I love Rome Odunze. He's arguably, probably, right up there for me at wide receiver 2. He just does. There's nothing that he's not good at. Like, he wins at all 3 levels of the field. He's got enough. He's not a burner, but he's got enough vertical speed. Like you said, can go up and can get those contested catches and so on and so forth. Doesn't run the fullest or the most pure full route tree, but that will develop as well. Like I said, he's just he's just a steady producer that has gotten better year after year after year. I know this pick probably won't make a lot of Jets fans happy, but I for one think that it's phenomenal. I absolutely think it's a phenomenal pick. So as a Jet fan, I'm happy to see here. And that leaves me at San Diego. And to me, it's no problem here. They run to the board. Brock Bowers, the second of the 2 generational in this class. Brock Bowers does everything. It's a position of need for the San Diego Chargers. Just keep putting weapons on the board for San Diego, and somebody like Brock Bowers that can do it in line. He can pop out as a slot receiver. To me, it's a no-brainer. Tennessee's on the clock.
Absolutely. Great pick. It's a position of need. Staley's gone after this year, and I think you're right. Brock Bowers, the only other guy that I finally got to my tight ends. Yeah, generational is the right word for Brock Bowers. Tennessee is on the clock, and it's a weird spot with Tennessee because I feel like the solution to their problems is just put Skoronski at tackle, right? Like, stop forcing him to play guard, put him at tackle. He probably works at tackle, and then you can bump the other guys inside, and they probably benefit from it. But I think Tennessee has to go back to try to fix this secondary. They have to try to fix this defense. I think the offense is actually working kind of well. Will Levis is producing in that offense really, really well. So I'm going to take my cornerback 1 as of right now in Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I'm going to send him to Tennessee. Tennessee's got to start trying to figure out how to fix that that secondary so that they're not giving up as many points. And I think that they've got a really interesting like defensive scheme and what they can do. And I think McKinstry can come in there and add a really high level player at a position of need for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I like that fit. I had him targeted for one of my teams that I'm picking soon, so a little upset, but it is what it is. And I'm up with the Raiders. The Raiders can go a bunch of different ways here. Talisi Fuaga makes sense. You can pop him on the right side at right tackle, and have good bookends with Colton Miller and Talisi Fuaga. Yeah, I mean, listen, they can go a bunch of different ways. Defensive back makes sense as well, but as nice of a story as they've been here, I don't think Aiden O'Connell was the future. He's a nice player. He's a nice player, and we know that Jimmy G ain't the future.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and take a quarterback for them, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that they retain Antonio Pierce as the head coach. That's just an assumption.
I think so.
And I'm going to match up the old Arizona State combo when Pierce was there with Jaden Daniels. Listen, Jaden Daniels is arguably the best athlete in this draft class, period. End of sentence. What he does with his arm, what he can do with his legs, probably pushing right there towards the Heisman. He's got some work to do. I don't know if he's as pure of a pocket passer as the other two guys are, but this is probably a match made in heaven for me. I don't think any other pick makes any more sense than Jaden Daniels here to the Raiders. So you're up with the Saints.
It's a great pick. I love Jaden Daniels. I love that connection, Arizona State connection between the two. I think that's a really, really cool. That'd be a really cool moment there. I have the Saints, and the Saints are also a very interesting team in the way that they're going to go. Obviously, they have Derek Carr, and they have Kamara, and they have the offensive line that's struggling with injuries, and they just recently used that first-round pick in Trevor Penning, and it hasn't been necessarily working out for them and all of that stuff. I'm going to give him one more year, and so I'm not going to go and attack the offensive line, but I do know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they do need pass catchers. Right now, it's just the Chris Olave show, and I love me some Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. I love what he brings. 6'4", I think he's 210 is his weight, and again, he's kind of the antithesis of what Chris Olave is, right? Chris Olave is small, shifty, fast, is going to burn you and beat you inside, and you're just going to have a hard time keeping up with him. Keon Coleman's not going to separate from you, but you're also not going to stop him from catching the ball. Big, physical, big-bodied receiver turns 50-50 balls into 70-30 balls. Let's get Derek Carr a big target like he wanted to have with Devontae Adams in Las Vegas. Yeah, I'm not saying Keon is Devontae. The moment it came out, I could see people in the comments. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying Devontae's a big body. That was it.
Yeah, and Michael Thomas seems to have played his days are long done in New Orleans. So a big body compliment to Chris Olave completely makes sense. And that leaves me on the board with the Cardinals, who have now traded down twice and accumulated a pool of riches here. And it's funny because a lot of the guys that I had kind of pegged that I thought, would fit for the Cardinals have already been taken off the board, right? When I traded down this last time with Green Bay, I was targeting on Kool-Aid McKinstry, and you jumped the gun there with Tennessee. So I'm going to pivot, and I don't think this is too much of a pivot. He's actually my QB1 or my CB1 on the board, and I'm going to go ahead and lock down Nate Wiggins for them.
Oh yeah, great pick.
I mean, he's just been outstanding this year. I think that much, a little bit better of an athlete. Sinks his hips, can break on balls. Not scheme specific. He can get up there and play in man. Probably the best run defender out of all the defensive backs in this draft class. So a perfect fit for a defensive-minded head coach in Jonathan Gannon. So, Nate Wiggins, you're an Arizona Cardinal. And that leaves you with the Sean McVay-led LA Rams. Where to go?
I think it's really easy. with the Rams have a ton of needs and all that stuff. But I think with Stafford starting to get back to health and the finding gold in Puka Nacua, I knew that kid was going to work. I loved Puka. Didn't think it was going to work this well, but if but Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, that's a pretty good wide receiver room. The offensive line can use some work, but I think the biggest thing that they need is to address the defense. So I'm going to stay in California. I'm going to take one of my favorite edge rushers in this class. I'm going to take Liatu Latu. Keep him in California, currently at UCLA. Keep him in Los Angeles. Just move up the road and go play for the Rams. You got to try to take advantage of Aaron Donald for as long as you can. You got to start addressing that defensive line. And I think that while, yeah, you can go different ways with the secondary and all that stuff in LA, just create not coverage sacks, but create pressure interceptions, right? If you can just get to the quarterback faster than he can get the ball out, it doesn't matter how good your secondary necessarily is, right? So Liatu Latu, if he passes a physical, I think this is a really, really good fit. And wait until 14 to get the first edge off the board, Dom. Like, it just took us way too long to get the first edge off the board.
Crazy, but it's listen, I love the pick. I love
the
fit. Probably, you know, if I'm not thinking quarterback for the Rams, it's probably the way I would lean to as well.
And that's what I thought.
Yeah, that leaves me with the Cincinnati Bengals. So, Cincinnati's an interesting one here, right? But I think the board fell pretty well. Listen, I think they need to replace. I mean, both Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are free agents. I don't see them both coming back. If either of them come back, so wide receiver is a sneaky need here. So looking at the board here, I don't know if there's anyone that I like in this area or this high. I think all the wide receivers that I would have considered, I think Keon Coleman's a perfect fit for them. I happen to really love Xavier Leggett, but this might be a little bit too rich. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep protecting the golden boy, Joe Burrow. And I'm going to replace Jonah Williams, whose contract is up after this year. And I'm going to go ahead and draft them Talise Fuaga. Now, in the instance that, they bring back Jonah Williams, you can always consider Fuaga inside if you'd like. I don't know what Alex Kappa, their right guard, I don't know what his contractual situation is, and I don't know who they start at left guard. Cole Cordell Volson, I think. I don't even know. But listen, if nothing more, it adds talent, depth, and an absolute beast of a human being on the offensive line. Just a pure mauler. Someone whose draft stock is going right through the roof. So Talise Fuaga, you are a Cincinnati Bengal, and you are up with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I do want to mention real quick, the Fuaga pick for the Bengals, I think, is a great one. They need a right tackle, and Talise Fuaga is the purest right tackle I've ever seen. I think he comes in, and I think he starts at right tackle. I love that pick. The Buffalo Bills are a really, really interesting team to pick for because my immediate thought is they need a wide receiver, right? Gabe Davis is on the last year of his deal, and you can't just have Stephon Diggs and then interspersings of Khalil Shakir, a pick that they had a couple years ago, and I really liked that pick. But like you just said with the Bengals, I think it's a little bit too rich for some of the wide receivers. Thought Keon Coleman over here would have been a great fit for them. But I do think they do need to do is address the secondary. The secondary in Buffalo is aging incredibly, incredibly well, and they need to find a way to get a cornerback pairing that can stay on the field, a safety pairing that can stay on the field. And why not just get a player that's going to play one of the one of the 5 secondary positions on the field? You don't know if he's going to be a nickel, if he's going to be an outside corner, if he's going to be a safety, if he's going to be a box safety, if he's going to be a free safety. But the kid's an athlete, and he can just play. I love Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. I think that this is just one of those get crazy kid who's crazy athletic and just knows how to play football and figure out where he's going to play after the fact. He can play safety for you. He can play corner for you. And I think that he can do I think he can play corner at the next level, even though he's probably going to end up playing a safety. But Poyer and Hyde are way too old to be staying on this team beyond. You got to start looking beyond them. And if you tell me Cooper DeJean comes in and takes one of those two guys' job, I'd be more than happy with that.
Yeah, no, listen, it makes sense. Like, Buffalo is gonna have some cap trouble in next year and the years to come. So forget about the age of Poyer and Micah Hyde. Just the money alone, they're going to need to start replacing some of those guys. So you know what? At worst case scenario, Cooper DeJean comes in and he's your slot for a year before he transitions back into one of the the split safeties or something like that. Again, great pick. I really get it. I get that fit for this team. And I'm back on the clock with the Arizona Cardinals. And what did we do last time with Arizona? Who I
Nate
already
Wiggins.
forgot. Oh yeah, we took Nate Wiggins. Yeah. Nate Wiggins. Okay, so man, they can go a bunch of different ways here. They can go a bunch of different. They can go a bunch of different ways. Okay, I'm going to man, I don't know what to do here. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to get a guy. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take J.C. Latham from Alabama. Now,
Figured.
they drafted Paris Johnson last year. Paris Johnson has slotted in as the right tackle. Okay. So maybe they decide to move Paris Johnson over to the left side to replace DJ Humphries. JC Latham maybe can transition to play left tackle in the NFL also. At worst, one of them pops over and plays guard to replace Carter O'Donnell or Tristan Colon who have slotted in at the at the left guard. Again, I think this is kind of just take the best available offensive lineman and figure it out. And JC Latham, like I said, at 355, 360 pounds, it moves like a guy who's 260 pounds. He's violent. He plays menacing football. A guy just loves the game. You could tell that he loves to play football. So I don't care where you put him. I'd probably pop him on the right tackle and move Paris Johnson over to left tackle, or pair the two up on the right side, or pop one at left guard for a year or two. Either or, I think that for me, this is just a pick that makes sense. J.C. Latham to the Cardinals, and you were up with the Broncos.
Got to protect Kyler. He's coming off of that injury, and offensive line needs help. We go to the Denver Broncos. And I think you got to go back to that defensive side of the ball. The offense is starting to cook, but they got rid of Bradley Chubb, and they haven't been able to find a replacement for him and the production that he provides and the value that he's bringing right now. So I think you got to go and you got to try to do something. And so I'm going to take a guy that I'm just really excited about him just as an athlete and as a prospect. I'm going to take Chop Robinson, the edge out of Penn State here. Man, when you talk about explosiveness and quick and twitch and just he embodies all of that stuff. And I think that if he can figure out an edge rush plan for the NFL level, I don't know how you're going to stop all that much mass and strength and speed that he has. He's just raw. But I love that he's this unmolded ball of clay. And if you've got a defensive coordinator worth their salt and you get your hands on Chop Robinson, you should be able to turn him into a lethal weapon for you for a long time.
Yeah, no, perfect fit, I think. Perfect fit. You pop him outside on the opposite side of Nick Bonito, and you got guys that can just, like you said, twitchy, can bend, and can get at the quarterback in no time flat. I love that fit for Denver with Chop Robinson. That leaves me with Atlanta. And I'm tempted here. I don't know realistically if I can pass up replacing Desmond Ritter here.
Yeah,
I mean, it just
you have to.
makes too much sense, especially with Arthur Smith. Who knows how long he's going to be there, right? And I can't see the next regime just like banking on the you know Arthur Smith rules of football, which means you get somebody in there that tries not to make mistakes but makes mistakes. I mean, as Jets fans, we lived through that for the past 2 years. So I'm probably going to go ahead and take Bo Nix. I think he's probably ready to step in and run an offense. I don't know if I don't know if it'll lead to immediate success. But I think here at 19, you can take that. You can take that shot. He offers a hell of a lot of athleticism. Can do stuff with his legs, and it's just another weapon on that offense. Paired up with Drake London, paired up with Kyle Pitts, paired up with Bijan Robinson. Now you have another weapon in Bo Nix who can get you with his arm and his legs. So if there's any fit, if Bo Nix wasn't on the board here, I probably would have leaned. I really, really like Braylon Trice to this team a lot. I think he can pop in at 5 tech and replace Calais Campbell, over the next year or so. But Bo Nix is too good to pass up. So I'll take Bo Nix.
Yeah, I love this pick. I think I have Bo Nix as my QB3, and I think adding him to an offense that wants to run the ball first, and he adds that the ability to run as well. I love this matchup. Now I have the Indianapolis Colts here at 20, and I'm like torn between a rock and a hard place here because it's just like they have their first round quarterback. He got hurt, and you know what? Let's try to do everything that we can to protect him. And they've got a pretty decent offensive line in Indianapolis. I love Raymond. He was one of my favorite tackles in that class when he came out. Braden Smith has been playing excellently ever since he got to Indianapolis. Quentin Nelson, one of the best guards in all of football. Ryan Kelly, one of the best centers in all of football. Can you upgrade Will Fries and just have this impenetrable wall in front of Anthony Richardson? And if you can, is that what you want to do? But then you got to look at it like, are they going to bring back Pittman? This is his last year of his deal. Are they going to bring him back? Are they going to be active in free agency? There's not a linebacker that I feel super comfortable here, taking. Is this where Cameron Kingens goes to kind of take that free safety spot and kind of secure that secondary? Oh, there isn't this is too high for Leonard Taylor, in my opinion. Oh, what do you do if you're Indianapolis? Do you go Emeka Egbuka here and just get another wide receiver? I think Josh Downs is incredibly good. I like Josh Downs a lot.
Me too.
I think you can find a Pittman replacement in the second round. I'm going to take Cameron Kingens here. Fix that secondary. I'm going to put Kingens in Indianapolis. I love Kingens' game. I love what he does here in my backyard in Miami, capital of Cuba. I love the game that he plays and the value that he can provide to that secondary, no matter where you play him, whether it's in, the box, in the slot, it's deep. He's just a versatile safety, and I love being able to, you can just truly disguise your coverages with him because you have no idea if he's on the field. You have no idea if he's a nickel, if he's a safety, if he's a corner, like you don't know. So I love that.
Yeah, no. Kitchens is just a ball player, man.
Yeah.
I said he's probably the purest safety prospect that I've seen in quite some time. He's going to make any football team better.
Yeah.
And I think he fits the scheme that they want to run over there in Indianapolis. So I like the pick, I get it. I get it. So I'm not going to complain about it. I think Kitchens is well worthy of a top 20 pick. That leaves me on the clock with Minnesota.
Yep.
I don't know what to do here at Minnesota. I know what the consensus probably says I should do, but I just don't know if I'm sold on Michael Penix as a first round pick.
He passes a physical.
Listen, there in the past, Michael Penix since 2017 has torn his ACL in his right leg twice. He had one injury on his throwing shoulder and one injury on his non-throwing shoulder. That just doesn't bode well for me, and definitely going to throw up some flags. I just don't know if he's a first-round pick. However, watching Minnesota play, I mean, you can tell that just the way that offense just completely stalled with Josh Dobbs there on Monday night. I mean, it was pretty bad. Josh Dobbs is exactly what he is, and that's a backup worthy quarterback. So, for lack of better, I'm going to go against my best thinking. No, I'm not going to go against my best thinking.
He's going to end up there. You know it.
I'm going to take Michael Penix. I'm not going to be happy about it, but at this point, I think they need to bring some sort of talent in there. And, they can talk all they want about the kid they drafted last year from BYU, but he ain't that great either. So Michael Penix, I guess, to the Saints, I'm not too happy about, or to the Vikings, I'm not too happy about it, but the Seahawks are on the clock.
Feel happy about it. It's a good pick. I like this pick a lot. It's the pick that I would have made, and I think he's worthy of a first-round pick. I'm going to Seattle. Seattle's an interesting team when you look at it. I love Seattle and the way that they're built. And I want to address the offensive line because Geno Smith needs the offensive line to operate well, needs the run game going so that you can get Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker going. And I love that ability. I just don't know if I can really continue to keep passing up on Jared Verse and Dallas Turner. Guys that I have top 15 grades on, right? Jared Verse was going to go in the top 5 last year if he declared. And they're still on the board. And I'm about to pass up on them again. I can't believe that I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Graham Barton, listed as an offensive tackle right now. And we'll talk about him later because I love Graham Barton out of Duke. And I'm going to slot him immediately into one of the guard positions.
Yeah, he's got 5-position flexibility. I mean, he literally can play anywhere. He can plug in anywhere on that offensive line. So I get the pick, man.
And it's just figure out the best 5, and Graham Barton is just a Swiss. He is the Elijah Vera Tucker. He's going to be the Elijah Vera Tucker for Seattle, and he's just going to be able to be like, wherever you need me. He can play different in the same game. He can play the different spots all throughout the game. So I can't pass up that value. You got to protect Geno. Man, did I want to take an edge there. I really, really did.
I'm up with Pittsburgh, and to me, this is a no-brainer. I think Pittsburgh's a really good team. I really do. I mean, I don't know. They're built very well. I don't know how much I love Kenny Two Gloves, but I think I think he's more than serviceable. I don't think he's the worst quarterback in the world. I don't,
he's on our team.
I don't think he's going to, single-handedly dominate anyone. He's much more of a system quarterback, and now that Matt Canada is gone, maybe he'll be able to turn it on a little bit. So, listen, offensive line is still kind of in play, but when I think about this team and I think about Pittsburgh, you think about that defensive backs, right? Minkah Fitzpatrick's hurt, okay.
Yep.
But after that, I mean, Joey Porter's been playing lights out this year. I've been more than impressed by Joey Porter on one side at cornerback. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick playing one of the safeties, so that's fine. But the rest of the defensive backfield, Pat Pete is kind of lost his juice, right?
Yep.
I know that they have – I don't even know who their slot corner is. Why can't I? Is it Darius Rush?
No.
Am I right on that? I know they got Darius Rush on the team.
Oh, man.
Anyhow, doesn't make a difference. If I can't name them and they have Pat Peterson, who's probably pushing 40 years old, they need defensive back help.
Is it Levi Wallace?
No, he's in Detroit.
No. He's in Pittsburgh. I know Wallace is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Terrion Arnold.
Ooh.
Who
is that name we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, but he flies under the radar a lot. He is obviously plays opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry and gets a lot of action over there in Alabama. And he has probably impressed me more than any of the other defensive backs here left on the board. And there's a couple that I really, really like. But I think Terrion Arnold has the size to hold up. Is sturdy enough against the run, fluid enough to handle press man opposite Joey Porter. I think that you pair those two together, and that's a young, very violent and very aggressive defensive cornerback field for the next few years, man. I
Screams
like how
Pittsburgh secondary to me.
yeah.
Screams when you put those two, Joey Porter and Arnold together. They're going to get in your face. They're going to hit you hard, and they're going to play aggressive.
Listen, Terrion Arnold has played at the level that you can argue that he's been one of the best defensive backs in the nation this year. And he just flies under the radar because everyone talks about Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So Terrion Arnold, I think, would be a great fit in Pittsburgh. He can do everything, he can do everything that they want to do over there. And that leaves you on the clock with Houston.
I am fighting so hard because am I going to do it again? Am I going to pass the edge rushers again?
Well, they're going to go at some point, man.
Like, they have to go at some point. But the way that I look at this is like, if you can put Tank Dell, who's having a great year in Houston with CJ Stroud there. They've got Nico Collins there as the big-bodied wide receiver, but you want to put Dell in the slot. Like, that's where he's going to shine. And right now he's playing a lot like on the outside and stuff. And you're staring down the barrel of Emeka Egbuka here. I can't pass it up. I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka here. Give the Ohio State, again, bring that connection again. CJ Stroud's familiar with him, understands the timing. And now you're looking at, if the offensive line can stay healthy in Houston, one of the best offensive lines in football, a really solid running game if they add a running back in this draft, and a really, really good wide receiver room with their quarterback. Who cares if the defense can't stop anything per se? Their defense is actually playing well. They're just going to score 1 million points a game. I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka. I cannot believe I passed on the edge rushers again. I love edge rushers.
And that leaves me on the clock with Miami.
Take an edge rusher.
No, I'm not going to take. Listen. Well, who knows? With
no, it doesn't make sense.
Phillips is going to be gone for a while, right? I'm not taking an edge rusher. I'm going to flip to the opposite side of the ball. Teron Armstead is kind of pushing his last legs here in the NFL, right? He hasn't stayed healthy for a full season in quite a while. There's not a lot of holes on this team. That's a team that is built to win now and withstand a push right now. Listen, they got a lot of, not old, but older contracts on this team. Tyreek Hill and a lot of their defense, Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb. These guys are big money guys that are not going to be here for the next rebuild, right? So your window is now. So you go and you protect your quarterback and you put somebody out there on the offensive line that is an agile mover, who is adept in, both pass and run situation. Remember, they are a run team first. Don't let the numbers of Tua and the numbers of Tyreek Hill tell you differently. They want to run the ball first and foremost. So I'm going to put a guy who I think fits the zone scheme perfectly for them, possesses a lot of power. Some might question his arms, and I'm curious to see at the combine how he comes in. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take one of my favorite tackles in this class, in Jordan Morgan from Arizona. I think he's a left tackle through and through, and he's your Teron Armstead replacement and probably not much of a hitch here. He had an ACL last year. He's recovered from that. I'm not going to say that that's not real. That absolutely is real. But at 6'6", 320 pounds, I mean, he could play left tackle with the best of them. And I really like the prospect. Like I said, I love the way he moves. I think he's perfect in the. I think he's perfect in the wide zone scheme that they run. And he's, he's got a good kick step and he can mirror very well. So he's not a deterrent. It doesn't deter you in pass sets to have Jordan Morgan out there. So
no, Jordan Morgan is going to be the guy that I have skyrocketing up boards once we get into the evaluation process. This is a class where we might see 7 tackles taken in the first round, based purely on there's so many guys that are just so good, and you got your Jordan Morgans and your, Amarius Mims is still on the board, and where does
Mims might go back to school? There's a good possibility that he doesn't declare. So,
but even then, it's just you still Patrick Paul. Where does he end up? Out of Houston, and Fatanu with Washington. People are falling in love with his game. Again, a lot of guys that are going to skyrocket off the board. Do they all play tackle? Probably not, but love that. Dallas is on the board here at 26. And I'm not going to skip on this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to take Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama here. I think it's just a value thing at this point.
It's a great pick. Great
BPA.
Pick.
It's just BPA for me here. This is a guy that I have in the top of close to the top of my board, and him on the opposite side of Parsons. I think he provides a similar type of athletic profile to where you can kind of bump him around and that, over the tackle, outside of the edge of the tackle, like wide 9, and you can get him to really do different things and attack in a bunch of different ways. I think he's got the speed. I think he's got the athleticism. I think he can do all that stuff. And so, yeah.
He can affect it. He can also play off ball if you need him to as well.
Yeah.
Dallas
does it at Alabama.
Yeah. It's a great fit here for Dallas. So I get it. And I'm on the clock with Detroit Lions. I'm going to replace Jared Goff. No, I'm not. I'm kidding. That was a joke. That was just for you, Tigo. You're the only one that wants him out of here.
I didn't say I want him out of here. I said if there was, if Penix was here, maybe you take Penix. I didn't think he'd last this long. I'm just saying maybe. That contract's not getting easier.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this team here, right? I think Brian Branch was the steal of the draft last year, taken in the second round, and he has just, already becoming one of the better slot corners in the league. They got Cam Sutton. I know they signed to a deal, so he'll probably be back. They got Kirby Joseph and Tracy Walker playing safety over there. I thought about safety. I love Cam Kitchens to this spot, but he's already off the board. So I'm thinking, do I put somebody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson? I don't know if there's a guy here that I like at defensive interior. I think the position is, after Jerzon Newton, it's kind of falls off a cliff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move to the inside of the offensive line. And although he's listed as a tackle here, I don't think he's going to play tackle at the next level. I'm going to go ahead and lock down Troy Fatanu from Washington. I can see him as a guard. He even, he can even plug in and play center in place of Frank Ragnow if you need to. But at worst, he's your right guard, Graham Glasnow replacement for the next whatever. You line him up next to Penny Sewell. That could be a force to be reckoned with right there.
Very upset.
Why is that?
Now I actually have to think about what the Jaguars are going to do, because that was going to be kind of where I was leaning for the Jaguars, and just be like, you know what? Well, they did bring in Ezra Cleveland, right? Yeah. They did trade for him.
They did. Who's up for a contract,
but he's up for a contract. And I don't know. They haven't re-signed him yet. And I love Ezra Cleveland, and that's a really, really good fit. But I consider that more of a rental, we're going to go for it this year kind of a pick, than because they didn't give up much to go get him. What was it, a 6th? But then I started looking at that defense, staring down the barrel of Jared Verse. Josh Allen's not going to be here beyond this year. He's on the last year of his deal. Are they
Well,
going to
they
tag him?
could re-sign him, but
They could re-sign him, but also Trayvon Walker hasn't been playing all that well, justifying his pick. And you can never have too many edge rushers. Like the Jets have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL because it's just waves of guys. You're just never tired.
yeah.
I'm going to keep the Florida boy in Florida. I'm going to take Jared Verse, and I'm going to send him to Jacksonville. I love Jared Verse. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick last year, and just because he's struggling a little bit in production this year, which I don't even really think he's struggling all that much, I'm going to send him there and just build one of the crazier, just rotations of guys out there. And Trayvon Walker has that like size and athletic speed. You can imagine the NASCAR package of Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, and Jared Verse on like 3rd and long. Whew.
Yeah,
It'd be hard to stop that.
That is pretty sick. Listen, I would have taken Jared Verse right here for Kansas City and lined him up next to George Karlaftis and just let them go. That would have been so much fun.
So dirty.
That would have been so much fun. But I digress. I'm going to kind of pivot to the opposite side of the ball for Kansas City. There's a bunch of different ways I think Kansas City can go here. In defensive line is an option, and I think Braylon Trice would be very good, but he might be a little too much like George Karlaftis for my liking. You get two guys who really just are bulls on the end. I don't know if you want to play them together. They both lack a little bit of that, get off bendiness and so on and so forth. I'm not saying they're bad players at all. I actually like Braylon Trice a whole heck of a lot. I think Jared Verse would have been a better fit to play opposite of Karlaftis here in Kansas City. I think the linebackers, listen, Willie Gay's not getting any younger, right? Leo Chanel's been playing okay. Drew Tranquil, came in from the Chargers. He's been playing good. I just don't know if there's a linebacker here that I like all that much, to be completely honest with you.
No.
So I'm going to stick on the offense, and I'm going to give them a weapon of mass destruction. I'm going to give them a wide receiver that's completely different than the guys that they have here on the board. I'm going to give them a true X. I'm going to give them a just a dog, an absolute one of my favorite in this class. 6'3", 230 pounds.
I love this kid.
Xavier Leggett.
Oh, I love this kid. I love this pick. Oh, this is unfair for the rest of the NFL. I hate comps, but this is a comp made in heaven. Xavier Leggett reminds me of DK Metcalf coming out of college. Yeah. Like that same kind of scouting profile that you gave to DK when you scouted him is the same kind of scouting profile you're going to give to Xavier Leggett, and it makes sense. I love this pick for them. I love that
huge. He's huge hands, huge catch radius, and a just ridiculous short target. Plus, I mean, he's just opposite of what they already have there. They got a lot of the quick little guys. I mean, Rashee Rice has been pretty good.
Yep.
But that's fine. You want to keep, Rashee Rice isn't a pure X. I think Leggett is a pure X. Listen, he might not be the quickest or the twitchiest guy. He's more of a smooth mover, but with the ball in his hands, he can go, man. Like you said, he's I think a lot of the world now that Leggett's accepted his bid to the Senior Bowl, between the Senior Bowl and the Combine, I think his name is going to rise up the boards really quick. So I don't even know if he'll last this long, but for me, I think it's perfect. And you now have, Rashee Rice, Xavier Leggett, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. You still got Valdez-Scantling there to stretch the field a little bit. You got a lot of weapons there.
I love Leggett. Love Leggett because, I think the biggest knock on Leggett is going to be he only runs 3 routes. It's like a post, a fade, and that's it, and like a go, right? Like that's what he does at South Carolina. And it's just you can develop all the other things. It doesn't really matter because he's going to win on those routes, and it's Patrick Mahomes. He's going to get it to him. Yeah. And so I love this pick. I have San Francisco here at 30. We talked about him before. If he doesn't declare, we'll change this pick later. But I think you got to attract ever since McGlinchey left, you got to try to figure out what you're going to do at that right tackle spot. They have the best left tackle in football, in my opinion, in Trent Williams on one side, but the rest of the offensive line is really, really rough in San Francisco. I think you found gold with the last pick in the draft in Brock Purdy. He can operate that offense well. And I'm not saying that he's like this world-beating quarterback. I don't think he's all that good of a quarterback, but he can operate that offense. Let's give Christian McCaffrey some help on that offensive line. Let's give Purdy some extra time on that offensive line. And then you can throw some money instead of getting tackles. You can maybe keep Young or try to keep Ayuk around and all of those different things. I'm going to take Amarius Mims, slot him in immediately at right tackle, and just see how that goes.
No, I get it. Makes sense. And I like
assuming he declares.
Yeah, I like the pick. I like I said, I probably he would be, in the argument, even as high as 17, where I took J.C. Latham if I knew he was going to declare. So, but again, I think for as good as Mims is, he hasn't been on the field all that much, right? Injuries this year have really hurt him. He moves very well for a big guy, 6'6" and 300 some odd pounds. He moves very well. So the sky's the limit. The upside is there. So I like the pick. I like the player. I like the pick, and I like the fit for San Francisco. And that leaves me here with Baltimore. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to stick to the defensive backs here. There's a couple that I really, really like. Denzel Burke is one of my favorites in the class, although I'm not going to take Denzel Burke, even though I have him rated higher than the guy I'm going to take. For me, I think the biggest need right now is who's going to man the slot. And to me, when I'm looking at these guys, I think Kalen King from Penn State just translates best to move inside at the next level. Listen, Kalen King has had a down year this year compared to the film he put on in 2022. 2022, he was dominant. I'm not going to say he regressed it, but he's had some troubles, right? The Ohio State game in particular made him he looked like he was playing scared. But I think that there's still a player in there, and for some reason, Baltimore really progresses these guys and develops these defensive guys to become very, 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 very strong. I think Kalen King's best role at the next level is going to be at the nickel. So to me, the transition and the fit meshes very well. I'll take Kalen King and keep him on the East Coast.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick. I love this pick. Now, I'm picking with the Philadelphia Eagles here at 32, and this is one of those things where I look at it and I go, you know what? It would be really, really easy. The secondary's getting old, and you got to try to look for a replacement for Bradbury and Slay and all of that. What are you going to do about the, interior of the offensive line? Cox is getting old and all of that stuff. But when I look at this team, I think that the biggest need in my eyes is I think that it is the cornerback position, but I just don't love any of the guys here at corner. I think you can find some value at corner elsewhere. But I agree with PFF here. I think you got to get A.J. Brown a better and more consistent running mate. I have never been the biggest fan of Devontae Smith. I just don't love his size and what he brings. And I don't think he's really suited to being a wide receiver 2 in the NFL. And while this is going to shock a lot of people, but I am so high on this kid. I think that when this is all said and done, this is about the range that he's going to go, which is at the bottom of the first, top of the second. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but he leads the NCAA with touchdowns at the wide receiver position. I love this kid out of wide receiver LSU. I'm going to take Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. Really, really just big body, 6'4", 205 pounds. Partner him with, A.J. Brown, who's that he's your true X, right? A.J. Brown is your guy that you're going to target all of the time. And Brian Thomas Jr. knows how to play as the Y, in an offense as wide receiver too. That's what he's doing at LSU right now. And they're trying to get that red zone target, that big body or whatever with Julio Jones. I just don't think that's going to work for them. You have one of the best offensive lines in football. You've got the depth on the offensive line in football. Let's get Jalen Hurts more targets and just let's make that offense even harder to stop. I love Brian Thomas. I have him graded really high, so I'm taking him and sending him to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I got no problem with Brian Thomas going in the first round. I mean, I think, like you said, this is probably the range where anywhere from 25 to 50 is probably where he's going to end up. Yeah, and listen, Philadelphia's got 2 second-round picks, so they'll have some room to address the defensive backfield or some offensive line depth. I mean, they're going to need a right tackle at some point, right? They're going to need to start, planning on who's going to be the right tackle of the future. So, there's guys that maybe I would have thought at that spot fit, but I really like Brian Thomas as a player. So you put
again,
him
this is I thought the same thought process that I had with the Giants at 6 is what I had with the Eagles, which is, dude, you have 2 second-round picks, and this is a really, really deep tackle class. You can get a tackle later. The linebackers haven't gone off the board yet. You can start looking at corners. I don't think Lane Johnson is done yet, per se, in my opinion. I think he can still play for a couple more years and kind of do that. And I know he's hurt and all of that stuff, and you start thinking about it, or I think did he get hurt in the Bills game? I remember seeing this whole controversy about Kelce.
He got hurt in the practice before a pregame, like a groin or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, he's probably in his last few years of play at Lane Johnson. So listen, I get the pick. I like Brian Thomas. He's good. He's a good player.
I love the pick. I was gonna make it no matter what, but
that's round 1, guys, and I'll refresh it real quick. Caleb Williams, quarterback, went to the Chicago Bears, followed by Drake May, quarterback from North Carolina, who went to Tampa Bay, who traded up. Marvin Harrison Jr. to the New England Patriots, wide receiver. Wide receiver Malik Neighbors makes the top 5, and he's a new weapon for Caleb Williams in Chicago. Olu Fashanu, the first tackle off the board for Washington, followed by Jerzon Newton, interior defensive lineman for the Giants. Probably, I'm not saying it's the worst pick, but probably the most surprising one. The one that I haven't heard yet, and that's Jerzon Newton to the Giants. Joe Alt to the Packers, who traded up to get him, to get ahead of the New York Jets, who sat and stuck, and as their GM today, Tigo, said, weren't going to take a tackle anyway, and they took Rome Odunze, the do-it-all wide receiver from Washington. Chargers took Brock Bowers, from tight end from Georgia. Tennessee Titans take Kool-Aid McKinstry, defensive back from Alabama. Raiders take the third quarterback off the board, Jaden Daniels from LSU, followed by Keon Coleman, the wide receiver, to the Saints. Cornerback Nate Wiggins goes off the board to the Cardinals, followed by Liatu Latu. The edge rusher extraordinaire goes to the Rams. The Bengals follow that up with offensive lineman Talisi Fuaga. The Bills, defensive back Cooper DeJean from Iowa. J.C. Latham, the tackle from Alabama, goes to Arizona. Chop Robinson, the edge rusher, to Denver. Love that pick. Love that fit. Bo Nix, the fourth quarterback in the first round, from Oregon to at the Atlanta Falcons at 19. Cam Kinchins, the safety, to the Colts at 20. The fifth quarterback in round 1, Michael Penix Jr. from University of Washington, goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Followed up by offensive lineman Graham Barton from Duke to Seattle. Pittsburgh took cornerback Terrion Arnold from Alabama. Houston Texans take Emeka Ebuga, wide receiver from Ohio State. Miami Dolphins take their left tackle of the future, Jordan Morgan, tackle from Arizona. The Cowboys followed up with edge rusher Dallas Turner from Alabama. Detroit Lions take Troy Futanu, offensive lineman from Washington. Jacksonville Jaguars add some more edge rush in Jared Verse from Florida State. The Kansas City Chiefs finally have a big body receiver in Xavier Leggett from South Carolina. San Francisco takes Armarius Mims, offensive tackle from Georgia. Baltimore, defensive back Kalen King from Penn State. And the last pick of the draft to the Philadelphia Eagles, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU. Tigo, that's round one. That's some trades. One pick right now that you could switch. What would you change? That you made.
Okay, that I made.
Yeah.
Just because I love this kid, and it's like I would take either one of these kids, and because I'm the Jets fan, it would be Keon Coleman to the Jets. I would take either one of those guys. I love Keon Coleman, but I also love Romo Dunes, and I have Romo Dunes as like wide receiver 2B and Keon Coleman as wide receiver 2C, and it's like it was just a toss up to which guy. I really, really like this wide receiver class. And so I would have taken any of the wide receivers, to the New York Jets at 8. But if I had to make a switch, it would probably be Keon Coleman. Being here in Florida, I love the Florida State, Florida guys, Miami guys. I love it when Florida schools have success.
Gotcha. If I could go back, if I had to pick one to change, well, I took Penix out of just a sheer need for quarterback. I don't necessarily really think that he's going to go in the first round, but that I'd probably consider Cooper DeJean in Cincinnati makes a lot of sense to me too. They can play, they could use some help on the outside or have him play inside at slot. Just a lot of flexibility over there. I like that. I like that fit a lot, but Talisi Fuaga, I think is a great pick there as well. So listen, the good thing is that it's only November 29th?
Yep.
So we're going to have a lot more time to do a lot more of these things before April comes around and the draft comes around. So there'll be lots more mock drafts happening here, folks. Please follow along on Project Prospect with Dom C. Hit the like button, subscribe. If you know what's good for you, you'll do it. Tigo, always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure. And guys, you can expect some more positional group breakdowns coming out between me and Tigo. We will be filming our offensive tackle one in the next couple days, and we'll get that out to everyone. So until then, on behalf of Tigo, I am Dom C, and we are the Draft Dodgers, and hope to see you soon.